thank you for doing this role because it means a lot to a lot of people. Do you still send thank you cards to Kenneth Branagh for changing your life?
Yes, I do. I think I've kind of used up all my lives, as it were, of trying to tell him in person. But I have told him in person several times. But he did change my life. He has changed my life. And continues to. But I did actually want to write exactly that, a thank you card for that exact express purpose. He didn't just do it for me. He did it for Chris Hemsworth, and he continues to do it for young actors all the time. It is a remarkable capacity for generosity that he has. Yeah.
You won't remember this, but I did a set visit on the first Thor, and I remember. I do remember it. I remember you walking over in costume and us standing there seeing you, and I'm like, oh shit, this might be really good. Like, you know what I mean? Just seeing everything we were seeing. But anyway, I don't mean to put myself in this. Do you see yourself directing in the future?
Wow.
I switched gears completely.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, it's something I have thought about. But I have also, I'm also not unaware, and apologize for the double negative. I'm profoundly aware of the responsibility and the responsibility of the role and of the expertise required. And so I feel that as an actor, I'm still learning. Every time I go to work, I'm still learning about the craft of filmmaking, about the very specific jigsaw puzzle that any production becomes, and all the elements that have to work in concert to give you even a chance of everything, you know, of everything going to plan. And I'm still learning, I think, I learn every time, as I say, from directors of photography, from production designers, costume designers, other directors, producers, writers, who constantly trying to think about story or think about the most dynamic and interesting way of telling that story. And maybe there'll come a time where I feel I'm ready to do that. But if it doesn't happen, happy to learn the lines and hit the marks and pretend to be other people.
Do you have a favorite theater to perform in London?
Gosh, good question. I have a soft spot for the Donmar Warehouse in Covent Garden, where I've performed twice, two Shakespeare productions of Shakespeare plays, Othello in 2007 and Coriolanus in 2013. It's an amazing space. Very, very. The audience is very close to the action, and I, as a young student, I used to go down there a lot and watch other great actors performing there, and think maybe one day. So, it's hard to pick one. But if I had to pick one, I would pick that one probably.
Sure. If you could go back in time, using time travel in this question, and do any performance again that you've done in the theater that is obviously now closed from your past, what would you do and why?
It's hard to pick one. I mean, I immediately thought of 3 Shakespeare plays. There's something about those texts which means you kind of never feel you've quite got to the bottom of them, because they're so worthy of endless exploration. I played Cassio in Othello, as I say. Chiwetel Ejiofor played Othello. Ewan McGregor played Iago in an amazing production full of extraordinary actors, and it was a very happy experience. And I'd love to go back and feel some of that warmth again. And then I played Hamlet, but not for very long. And I realized with these plays, sometimes the longer you do it, the deeper it goes. So maybe I'd go back and have another go at that. But look, I'm lucky I got to do it once.
Sure.
So
no
complaints here.
Do you think Loki will ever get a love interest in the upcoming future? Or are we going to encounter that in this series?
They say in order to have the first stable relationship you have to have is with yourself. And Loki is still working on that, I think. But it's I think it's always an interesting question. I've always been interested in the story, in the comics, in the couple of individuals that Loki allows to get close in a way that might make him vulnerable. So yeah, I think there are questions to be asked in that regard.
Sure. Did you have a good enough time on making this series that the concept of a season 2 sounds, yes, sign me up?
I loved making this. I really did. It was because we made it in the course of the last year, and on the other side, we made it through the pandemic. It became everybody on the crew became very invested in each other because it was something we were very committed to in some challenging circumstances for all of us. And the people involved were absolutely extraordinary in their skill level and their commitment and their generosity of spirit. And as you know, every time we all go to work, you go to work with a group of people, and half the time it's everybody else's inspiration that gives you the energy that you need. And these people, Kate Herron, Michael Waldron, Eric Martin, Kevin Wright, Owen Wilson, Gugu Mbatha-Raw, Wunmi Mosaku, Sophia Di Martino, and more that I cannot mention at this point. Autumn Durald, our DP, and her team in the camera department. Steve Aaron, our sound recordist, who I'd worked with before on I Saw the Light, Richard Graves and Christina Peterson, first and second assistant directors. We would not have finished this show without those two people. Trish Stannard, our line producer. These are the people that don't often get talked about, and the credit for this show belongs with them because it was a team game.
So you're saying season 2, thumbs up?
I know, Steve, I know now because I've played this role a while and I've died 3 times, or maybe 2 or 2.5. I know now that for me to have any expectations about what happens next is a fool's errand, but I am along for the ride, and you'll have to ask Kevin Feige and Louis D'Esposito about that one.
I understand. Thank you so much for doing this, and congrats, and have a great day.
Thank you, sir.